So this video I'm going to be talking through some different Autobelay routes, give some advice for those of you looking to do these, two of which I set. I'm a new route setter, so it's also cool to see how I climb a route now versus when I set it, kind of what changed with my body positioning versus what the intention was, because obviously when we are climbing with our own styles, we have certain biases towards certain movements. But when we set, we are trying to maybe force a movement or just make it more accessible for different types of movement. So it's cool to see what I end up doing. So in this video, there'll be 6 different routes. Started with a couple warm-ups that I didn't film, but then finish off with this gray 511. So let's get into it. So this first route is a 510 plus set by Tyler, who is the head route setter. Features several pockets throughout the route. A lot of 3-finger and 2-finger pockets, so not too strenuous on the hands. This sequence right here, I've seen a lot of people mess up with by trying to go right hand into that middle pocket. But it is a left cross through. Here, speaking of messing up, I should have done a bump with that left hand, but did a match on that hold. Worked out in the end, but definitely if you're going to do this route, I would suggest just bumping that left hand out around the arete. A lot of good feet on this, so you don't really have to do too much flagging. There's a lot of feet to put you in a position to have both feet on at all times. I like this little undercling bump to the left hand. That felt nice in the moment. Really enjoy this climb. It's a nice one that flows nicely. So after this climb, I do a pink 5-9, which I set. So prior to this route, I probably only set maybe 5 other rope climbs. And the style that I tend to climb with is I like to use all the reach I have. So one of the prompts Tyler was giving me was just to make it more accessible since it's a 5/8. And it's going to be on Autobelay, so a lot of people are going to climb it, especially newer climbers. So just having plenty of feet, plenty of bump hands, good jugs the whole way, varying the movement with bigger holds so people could match on them. And then just trying to make it flow nicely, not anything too difficult in terms of movement. So as a taller climber, you could definitely skip a lot of holds on this route. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I think it flowed nicely, a lot of foot options. No moves felt super physical. I think that's something we forget, like how newer climbers will feel during a route. Especially like when you've been climbing for a few years, you develop some strength that a normal person doesn't have. So even like smaller in-cut holds that feel really good for a climber who's been climbing for a couple years, a new climber that like almost feels like nothing to them. So it's something to keep in mind for myself when I set these easier grades. Next up is going to be this black 511 minus set by Charlie. A lot of cool big holds on this route. Also cool movements as well. Definitely trickier than the other 2 climbs for sure. as it should be based on the grade. Big right hand coming up. Really solid pinch though on there. Then a similar like opposite mirrored movement, the left hand coming through to a pinch. This is a cool footwork sequence, just walking your feet up, getting into the right position for those side pulls, especially on like those big black fiberglass holds, really slopey, so just finding the right positioning. This part tripped me up a little bit. Going with the crossed hands. This left hand is more slopey, so definitely didn't feel the best on it, but good enough. Definitely at this point, feeling pumped. So there's a good rest spot here once you get your left foot up. Could possibly go no hands if you're feeling it. If you get that right foot a little bit higher on the volume and just stand up. So the screw-on holds on this volume are pretty small. This section of wall is very vertical, so and since it's a volume, it doesn't need to be big to be that good, but just kind of figuring out the right body positioning right now in order to make it feel good, especially since I'm in like this barn door situation. Can't see it on the video, but there's a right hand. I'm using a yellow one. That helps me get up to this position. This move felt pretty tricky. It felt scrunched up. And that right foot didn't feel too good, so I had to bump it a little higher in order to make that move with my right hand. So this was definitely a reach for me, so anyone shorter, I would suggest smearing that left foot more on the surface of that black hold in order to get up. Probably smearing the right foot out as well. So this blue 5-9 was meant to be more of like an active recovery because I was pretty pumped after that yellow and black route. So I figured, hey, why not try some 3-finger drag? So a lot of this climb is basically just using 3-finger drag. All the holds are really big, jugs the whole way up. A lot of feet, so you don't have to have too much weight on the hands. Although the height of the wall definitely didn't make it feel like active recovery at the top. Definitely still had the pump from the route before. This sequence is pretty cool. It's a lot of layback on these big holds that you can match. So like no matter how you want to do it, you could definitely bring hands together, find the feet, and then start moving them up. One thing I've noticed with studying with Tyler, he definitely is a fan of laybacks. Then lie back in the other direction. Definitely a nice flowy route. Again, Tyler's really good at setting the feet and making sure you don't need to really pull hard, especially on easier grades. Harder grades, that's a different story. He sets some gnarly ones. So I was still pumped from that blue one. So here's another, I think 5-8, possibly 5-9. This one I set probably, I want to say like 2 months after that pink one that was earlier in the video. So definitely thinking more about accessibility again with an easier grade. That's like a really tricky thing with being new to route setting is hold selection too. Sometimes you'll see like this terrain has like very slight overhang, but even just using holds a little smaller than this would make it feel too hard. So sometimes I find myself grabbing holds that make things more difficult than they need to be. But this one just jugs the whole way. And here is the last climb of the video. This gray 511. Definitely on this vertical section, the holds are definitely smaller. Small crimps. Feet aren't, I guess, the biggest to be expected on this grade, but also the directionality of the feet, they're not always in opposition of your hand, so you really have to maybe toe in a little bit more. Cool press sequence right here. These slopey dual text holds were actually pretty good, the ones for hands at least. Definitely enough on there to get a good grip, especially right now. This is a really good rest position coming from those crimps. This sequence here I was a little bit unsure of because it doesn't feel, with the way the hand is positioned, if my left hip was in the wall, then it'd be easier to move the left hand, but it seemed more like a right hand move in order to get this left hand where it is right now. But I'm sure it could go either way, depending on how your reach is. Yeah, some of these footholds are a little hard to see with these bigger blue holds right above them. And then this sequence in this vertical section was cool. I like this next move coming up. You got a right Gaston going into a left and then just shifting that weight over. Honestly, this gray one felt a little bit easier than the yellow one. Maybe the holds might be a little bit worse, but the movement was maybe straightforward. Overall, solid route. So my goal for these videos is to document my climbing progress and hopefully some route setting videos too. Give you a behind the scenes look at what goes into it. I find it helpful to record climbing because then you could see movement from a different perspective, right? When you're on the wall, it's hard to tell what you're doing, but seeing it on video, you can kind of break down different movements. So not only to help me get better as a climber, but also as a route setter, and hopefully give the viewers of First Ascent Arlington Heights some beta if they're looking for it on any specific route.